Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to talk you through how I made this very aged, very distressed tray. This is what I started with. It's a little decorative tray made out of soft wood. To prime it, I applied one coat of white acrylic gesso all over the tray. After gesso was dry, I gave it a light sand using medium grit sandpaper. This was 120 grit. So now that the tray is prepped, it's ready to be decoupaged. So I take this decoupage paper from Little Birdie Crafts. I measured the size of the paper that I will need to fit it inside of the tray because it was a little bit bigger than my tray. I worked out how much paper I will need to cut off of each side just to keep that flower centered. And I did cut off a little bit more than what I needed for the inside of the tray because when you apply water, when you start gluing it down, the paper will expand a little bit, so you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Next, I sprayed the paper with a little bit of water. It helps glue seep in a little bit better and it expands the paper as well, thus helping you avoid any wrinkles or uneven application. To glue it down, I use this Decoupage decoupage glue. I apply a nice even layer on the bottom of the tray. Dab the excess water off of my decoupage paper and gently place it in. As you can see, I'm using this cloth to help me roll the paper down nice and even to minimize the air bubbles. Once I'm happy with it, I apply another layer of decoupage glue and leave it to dry. To mask the borders on the inside of the tray, I decided to use some of my Das air drying clay and a Redesign with Prima silicone mold. I picked out the trim that I wanted to place inside and I kept making them until I had enough to go all the way around the tray. To glue the molds down, I used trade grade PVA glue. I also decided that I wanted to add little clay embellishment on the outside of the tray, so I made these two little squares out of the Etruscan accent mold by Redesign with Prima. Used the ruler to help me center it and glued them down on either side. Once the clay was dry, I went ahead and I applied my base color. The paint that I'm using here is just a mix of black and white paint to get this grey shade. Because I knew that I wanted this tray to be very distressed, I used the candle to apply a little bit of wax here and there over the black paint, because it will help the second colour come off a little bit easier later. I also wanted to add a little bit of crackle, so I take this one step crackle medium, I poured it out onto my palette plate, I just kind of brushed it on here and there because I wanted the second colour to just have a little bit of natural crackle. For my second colour, I used this clotted cream chalk paint bought from Aldi, and I take this larger natural bristle brush and I start applying my second coat. Because I applied one step crackle medium, it's quite important not to go over it more than one time if you want the crackle to show up. And I wanted the tray to be very distressed anyways, so I literally just try to coat as much of the surface of the tray as I can with just doing one, maximum 2 strokes over that one part that I'm going over. I didn't end up getting as much crackle as I had actually hoped for, because I actually went over it too many times, stopping the formula from working. But I still got some nice little crackles here and there, and in my opinion it just kind of ended up actually looking quite natural. Remember how we applied a little bit of wax over our edges? So now to uncover those edges, I take a little bit of sandpaper and sand over them. Next I took a stencil and a little bit of pink and grey paint that we used earlier, and I applied these little stenciled ornaments on each end on all of these sides of the tray. Again, because we're going for an aged look, I did not try and get the stencil to look very crisp and clear. That's not the look that we're going for here. We're going for a very distressed look, so a very crisp stencil would look a bit odd. Using that same brush, I also ended up applying a little bit of this stencil paint on all of the sides of the tray, just because it was a different colour and I did not want the stencils to stand out so much, so I wanted there to be a little bit more of this shade on the tray. To connect the decoupaged picture to the rest of the tray, I took a little bit of this raw umber acrylic paint, and again using a natural bristle brush, I brushed on this paint on all of the sides of the tray. This shade of brown is a little bit closer to the sepia tones that we have on our decoupaged paper, and you always want to try and connect the decoupaged picture to the rest of the piece that you're making, so that's what I tried to do. For my next step, I wanted to age the actual decoupaged picture a little bit. So I'll take this two-step crackle varnish by Polyvine and apply my step 1, which is the base coat, all over the bottom of the tray, so all over the decoupaged picture. Leave it to dry and then apply step 2 or top coat of this two-step crackle. This is what it looks like dry, so the cracks have appeared. I decided to use soft pastels to fill in the cracks in my crackle varnish. These are Faber-Castell soft pastels. If you're going to try and do something like that, any soft pastels will do. These are just the ones that I have. So again, I take different shades of brown and greenish and a little bit of white to try and mix up a colour close to what we have on the rest of the tray. And using a brush, I gently apply the powder all over the bottom of the tray, filling in the cracks in the crackle varnish. I don't know how I forgot about it, but after you've used any kind of powders to fill in your crackle, make sure that you give it a wipe down with a cloth to try and clean off the powder. I completely forgot to do that, so when I went to varnish it, little bits that I missed off when I brushed off the excess got smeared a little bit, so don't make my mistake. To try and add a little bit of a royalty to this tray, because I mean it is very distressed, trying to make it look antique, and there's got to be a reason why anybody would want to keep a tray that's so battered. I used a little bit of this vintage gold wax by Finnabaum. I applied little bits on all of the edges of the tray and the mold as well. And to seal the tray, I used heavy duty wood varnish by Polyvan. I ended up applying 3 or 4 coats, I can't remember now. This varnish is completely heat resistant, so technically if you wanted to use this tray for hot teacups, you could. And there you guys go, so here it is. Here's the finished result. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something new. This project turned out to be a lot more distressed than I originally intended, which is something that happens to me quite a lot, to be honest. I often don't have the strength in myself to make myself stop, and things that I end up distressing end up looking a little bit more battered than I think a lot of people prefer. But that is my question for you guys. What do you think? How much distressing is too much distressing for you? Because it's something that I am personally not sure about. As always, links for everything used in this video are going to be in the description below for you. All of the links to my social media and things like that are going to be in the description as well. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos like this. Give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. It really helps out my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!